Join us for an interview with Dan Lywood, founder of Playlister.fm, a company that curates tailored music for businesses where atmosphere is part of what makes them premium. This company of music-obsessed researchers are sure to get the mood of any space just right. So tune in.
And we started talking and really, getting into each other's heads about what was missing within, restaurants and hotels, stuff where places that we'd like to go and hang out, and what was wrong. And we always felt that the music was off.
Okay, let's get into this. To win in most business categories involves waging a battle of inches, where doing a number of small things well ends up leading to big impact. If you're an experience-based business like restaurants or hotels, getting atmosphere right from aesthetic, scent, and sound is vital to reinforce what you stand for as a brand, and means taking nothing for granted in the less measurable areas of your business. In this week's interview, we feature a music lover turned DJ turned entrepreneur who's now in the business of curating sound for companies. While music curation isn't new, it's exploded in popularity and sophistication in the last 20 years as streaming programs have expanded our ability to engage and sample music. To give you perspective, with almost 30% of the music streaming market, Spotify alone has an estimated 4 billion playlists readily available, with 1/3 of its users turning to them for their entertainment. According to one study in the United States, in the second quarter of 2019, 55% of music subscribers were listening to playlists compiled by music streaming services, up from 27% in the first quarter of 2017. However, curating a good playlist goes beyond mindlessly throwing music together you think sounds good. And the truth is, a lot of music curation nowadays comes from algorithms and robots, which can make them impersonal and inconsistent. Our feature entrepreneur this week, Dan Lywood, believes music curation is as much art as science and takes an holistic analysis of a space to create the kinds of background music that can uniquely reflect exceptional brands, and his list of world-class venues proves his point. In this interview, Dan will talk about his time growing up in a creative household, his passion for music, and his beginnings as a DJ at a music consultancy, the journey behind building Playlister, and a lot more. Now, let's get to Dan. Hey everybody, this is Robert. I'm so excited to welcome my buddy and a really fantastic entrepreneur, Dan Lywood, who's the founder of a company I love called Playlister. Playlister is a business that basically creates the audio brand for really interesting companies, and Dan will tell us a little bit about it. So Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So Dan, let's start. I just did a very ham-fisted job of explaining what Playlister does. So tell us in your own language, what does Playlister do, and who does it serve?
Sure. We started Playlister. I'm a co-founder. I have a partner called Ben Bridgewater. We started Playlister in 2007 or 2008. So we've been going around about 15 years. I'd had a company called Sound Architecture with another partner, which we started back in 97. And that was a music consultancy, a DJ agency. And that was in the early days of, the kind of concept of music consultancy for retail restaurants and hotels. So really talking to restaurants, like good hotels and restaurants, about their music policy. And this was back in the days of CD, 5 CD interchanges, pre-iTunes, pre-Spotify, pre-Apple. So Sound Architecture ran until about 2006. I gave up or stopped that company and was DJing a lot and making some music. And then I met Ben, and he was really interested in getting into the sort of music space. He was also working as a DJ. He was also started filling up people's iPods for them, like friends' iPods. So this was the early days of Apple, really. So we started talking, we started kind of working together quite in a loose way, sort of ad hoc way. And Playlister was born really quite quickly after we met, as a route to, it was the early days of playlists. It was kind of before we all started on Spotify. So this was still when we were still working with iTunes at that point. And the more we talked, and Ben's very passionate about music, he's got incredible music knowledge. I'm a bit older. I've been doing, I've been DJing for quite some time. And we started talking and really, getting into each other's heads about what was missing within, restaurants and hotels, stuff where places that we'd like to go and hang out, and what was wrong. And we always felt that the music was off, often, badly thought out. It was rare that we'd go into a restaurant or a hotel lobby or we both traveled a lot with DJing and say, wow, they really got the music right. So we thought, okay, how can we help? How can we fit into that space? And, I've, as I said, I had a lot of experience really from working with good hotel companies. We did the Schrager Hotels in London. We worked with the Great Eastern Hotel, which was Terence Conrad's hotel in London, and lots of fashion shows, fashion companies, a lot of programming, curation. And again, curation before curation was really a thing. We talked about music curation quite a lot early on. And then without sounding like we invented the concept, it kind of blew up. Curation was absolutely everywhere. But we'd really been championing that as a concept. How do we come up with a music a policy or identity for your restaurant, hotel, lobby, whatever it might be, which fits the interior design, which fits what, or complements what the staff are wearing. Every thought that's gone into building a hotel concept, often the music is the last thing they consider. How do we turn that around? How does Playlister become synonymous with the same sort of quality that you might consider when you talk about a great chef? So often when a restaurant will say, we've got so-and-so cooking for us, he's got a Michelin star or whatever, or he or she's got a Michelin star. We want to be the company that they say, and we've got Playlister doing the music. We want to be the top curation company in the business. And I'd like to think we are achieving that. We've got some incredible clients now. We've worked very hard on a sort of in the luxury market, but boutique end of the spectrum, I guess. So we work with Chateau Marmont. We work with the Standard Hotel Group. We work with Chiltern Firehouse in London. So hotels, and brands, which you would say, well, these are really, the guiding forces, if you like, in style or that experience of something. Cool is a word that's bandied around a lot. It's not so much about being cool, it's actually about quality. And we want to work with companies that care so much about their food and beverage, their interior design, that they also care enough about the music to work with us, because we're not the cheapest. We're going to spend, you spend a bit more with Playlister, but you get a dedicated team of people who we handpick your music. So it's not algorithms. It's not AI. It's not, it's not a computer deciding what your music policy is. It's a team of people. And I think that's where we maybe stand out.
Do you know, I have a big question to ask about the nature of the businesses that actually care enough to invest in this. But before we go there, I actually, because I want to come back to that point, but I'm just curious. One of the things that I was really keen on in chatting with you is that music, you're not an accountant. You've come into this business because you have a deep love of music, and that probably didn't just show up when you're graduating university thinking, what am I going to do? It's probably something that's been with you for a long time, I'm assuming. So when did music start becoming a thing in your life? And when did you think, I got to try and make this something that'll give me a living. When did it
Yeah.
start, and where did the transition happen?
So I actually studied art. So I studied silk screen printing. I went to the London College of Printing. My mum was an artist, and I grew up in quite a creative household. I was always encouraged to be creative. I studied art at school. I went on to do a foundation and ended up at London College of Printing because I got into silkscreen printing. Excuse me. And whilst I was at college, so I guess in my late teens, early 20s, there was a real music explosion in the UK with acid house and the kind of house music explosion, if you like, in the late 80s and early 90s. And I was, I felt very much part of that scene and that experience, movement, if you like. And so whilst at college, I'd always collected vinyl. My dad collected jazz records. My brother was really into, or is really into, Northern Soul, and was a scooter boy. So he had scooters. All his friends would come around the house and listen to music on vinyl really loudly. So it was always in my life, if you like. My dad listened to gospel records, which I adored when we were young, as well as kind of ABBA. So there was always, there was pop, there was gospel, there was jazz, there was Northern Soul. There was always phenomenal music. And then it was, I guess, whilst at college, I bought some turntables. In fact, I'd always bought hi-fi equipment from jumble sales. My room at home at my parents' house was full of speakers and vinyl and rusty old turntables. And so before I got into Technics and actually having proper turntables, I would be playing around with vinyl and just trying to make, mix records together. And then whilst at college, I lived with a friend who was a DJ, and he was good. He is good, actually. He makes music too, Robin Brunson. And I practiced on his kit. And then finally I, got the money together to buy my own turntables. So all through college, I had turntables in our house. When I left college, I set up a studio to be a silkscreen printer and an artist, if you like, a sort of fine art printer. And I had turntables in my studio, and I just found myself that I found that I was mixing records more than I was making art. And really, to fund my art career, or I would DJ. And at first it was for nothing, then it was for £50 a gig, then it worked its way up until I wasn't an artist anymore, I was a DJ. And this was, at a time when I was younger, it was fun, and I started getting paid quite well for it. And do I sometimes look back and think, well, I regret not becoming an artist or a fine artist? At times I have to say, I do miss that, I wonder what if, but now I've come to terms with, I work in music, and this is who I am. It's still a creative undertaking. We make music, it's not just about programming other people's music. We do have a very creative arm of the company, if you like, which I'm very involved with. So, yeah, it came from, like so many music people, I think, went to art school, and it's something where you're surrounded by creative people. And, I was really inspired by my friends. As I said, my friend Robin, who was he was a great DJ and really taught me how to mix records together on vinyl, first of all. And at first I wasn't that great, like anyone. You start in a something, it's not easy, it's not easy DJing with vinyl. And, I made some terrible, terrible mistakes early on, but had the, I don't know if it's bravery, but, I was crazy enough to just keep on doing it. And then I realized after a while that I didn't want to just work nights anymore, because nocturnal living is tough, and you you end up becoming like Dracula if you don't see any daylight. So I decided, I met a guy called Tim Saw in the mid '90s, and Tim ran a design company. So we came from a sort of similar, both from an art background, but we're both doing music. He was booking DJs for the Met Bar, which was a huge deal at the time in London. I was booking DJs for Damien Hirst's restaurants, the Pharmacy, and Quo Vadis. So we were both doing something quite similar. He was a bit older than me, but because he had run a business before, he had quite a successful graphic design business. He knew how to literally run a business, sort the accounts out, sort the invoicing out. I didn't really have that knowledge. So, I was very much a one-man show. So when Tim and I met, we kind of bonded over our love of music. We realized that if we worked together, we would have the Met Bar, Quo Vadis, and Pharmacy as clients. That's a pretty good starting point. We were booking 30, 40, 50 DJs a week. So just on the DJ bookings that we'd make, we were doing quite well already from the standing start on our turnover. And Tim really sort of taught me how to, I guess, make the whole system more efficient, make it legitimate. At the time I was just doing it as a kind of another way to make a bit of cash, and often doing most of the gigs myself. I wanted to make more money, but then I'm maybe doing 3-4 gigs a week. That's you're earning quite good money, but you're as I say, not seeing a lot of daylight. So, and from working with Tim and forming Sound Architecture, we started working on catwalk shows. So all the music for events, event programming, and that side of things really interests me. I love working with designers like catwalk or fashion designers, because they have an artistic or creative vision which I want to try and slot into, or we want to try and slot into as a company. You've got this amazing collection of clothes. Well, what music's going to complement that? So it's all about this idea of coming back to the idea of sort of complementing other art forms, if you like, be it interior design or architectural design or fashion design. Well, what music goes with that? That's our kind of constant question internally.
I love that story, and I love the fact that a lot of people I speak to, they come from, I would say, more traditional families than you've come from. And I don't even know if that's a fair comment, but I know a lot of people that are discouraged from following a passion like you have. And you were fortunate enough in that you came from a family that already understood and valued creativity and knew how to make a living out of it. So you were able to pursue it naturally without facing pressure. I spoke to a young person recently who their great love was they really wanted to be a fashion designer. And their parents said, absolutely no way. Now, she's a lawyer at the moment, and she's doing very well for herself. But she said, I look back and I wonder. It's interesting. You look back at screen printing and say, well, and I think it is just, much the same. You work in a creative field, you get to express yourself. Now, not the way you would in screen printing, but it's in the same field, I think, or the same territory. So looking at the businesses that you do business with, I always find it fascinating when you see how much companies invest building this image in the marketplace, largely through things like advertising. And meanwhile, everything that is experiential is completely left by the wayside. So if you go into a store, their staff are not particularly trained well. If you go into their restaurant, their food's not great. If you go into their, if you call a call center, their service is crap, but they spend all this money on their advertising. What you're talking about is a very different thing. You're talking about a business that I'm assuming, first of all, they probably see that their business is purely sensorial. So all of these things need to be considered. I'm curious, what does it take? What's the kind of person that you do business with? What is it that they value most? What are they trying to create in their space that makes them consider music?
Yeah, interesting. So, excuse me. I have to say, we know pretty quickly, we've got very good at judging or gauging whether we're going to work with someone, honestly, within the first 10 minutes. Because if when we enter a room, we're coming, we've got a pretty strong track record. We've been doing this for a long time now. We take it very seriously. If I can sense whether someone is actually going to follow through with what we do, because we're not talking giant amounts of money. I think once we sign on, there's always, we're looking at a 3-year contract. Importantly, we don't want to do something for 6 months. We want to try and build a musical identity and have a long relationship. That's how we, it really is about people. Because if someone's investing time in even talking to us about their music, it's probably bad. It's probably not right. Or, it needs improving. And so I can confidently say that we can help, because look at our client list. We work with companies that are renowned for being, stylish, established brands. So, okay, well, we're in the room, and if someone's really serious about it, they want to know what we know. And it's not just like we're a consultancy, we're going to tell you what you already know. It's like, no, we have a team of people who research music day in, day out, and the team is growing all the time. And they are actively trying to receive the best. And, as you'll know, as everyone knows, more music gets released now than ever before, because you can make music on a laptop or even a phone. There is more music being released, and our job is to sift off the music that we would consider fits your brand or fits your experience that you want to translate. And also, kind of brush away all the music that doesn't, because our angle is, if you care enough to get us in the room, then we want to deliver. We don't want you to come back in 2 months' time and say, guys, that was a waste of time. But, it hasn't improved. And I honestly say we haven't undertaken a project that there hasn't been an improvement, because what's the point? We don't market a lot. We don't advertise what we do. It's all word of mouth. We get recommended by other companies who say, okay, you care enough about music, you want to make it better, you're going to have to invest a bit of money. It doesn't come free. If you think your bar staff can do it, good luck with that, because they're trained to be a bar person. They're not trained to necessarily, they might be a DJ in their spare time. Well, we've made our career or our business out of specializing in that sort of top tier music curation, where we're talking about a playlist which might be 2,000-3,000 tracks large. That's a lot of music to get right. And that's scheduled out into different day parts, of course, within a restaurant or a hotel lobby. To get that right consistently, day in, day out, that is a serious skill that we've spent years and years building. So it doesn't come free. However, incomparably with, other creative consultancies, I guess, or people that you might call on, like an interior designer or an architect, it's not that expensive. But likewise, we're not going to take on any business, because we have got a sort of finite amount of companies that we can work with. We're very ambitious. We are in a growth spurt, if you like, and we have a sort of plan of growth. But we're not desperate to take over the world and do every single pub and bar and retail outlet in the world. It's just not what we're aiming at. We're aiming at this kind of premium and companies that really want to be a bit different. If you want, stock music, if you like, that every other company or every other bar or restaurant in your street has got, you can get that, and it's cheap. And I will recommend that a company to you that can give you that, because that's not what we do. If you want it to be different, if you want to stand out and you want the quality of your music to be the same as, we're hoping you've invested a lot in your chefs and your front of house and your food and beverage and your interior design, well, those are the companies we want to work with, because we would consider our music or our programming of that kind of quality. We want to work with quality restaurants. Ben and I joke that we want to work with restaurants that we want to eat at. We want
Right.
to, I love the industry. I love hospitality. I love traveling. I've traveled a lot, obviously not so much in the last couple of years, but I've thankfully through my career as a DJ have visited some of the most incredible hotels and restaurants and private homes and stuff around the world. I feel very lucky in that respect. So I've learned a lot about what would be considered, if you like, the high end of the market. What is a great restaurant? And by the way, some great restaurants have no music whatsoever. So I don't think every venue needs music, but I would say that, I love experiencing someone who has passionately made it their goal to do something different. Or if they're doing something, Italian, it's Italian, but with a twist. It's like, what are we doing to make this original? Because if you want to look like TGI Fridays, that's easy. You can buy a franchise to be a TGI Fridays. If you want to do something new, that takes imagination and energy and money and investment and passion.
But there's another, I think that there is, and I've never really been able to put my own finger on it. But I remember, more than 20 years ago, I was running a group of agencies, and they were successful, and I had the good fortune to travel quite a bit, and I really fell in love with Ian Schrager's hotels.
Yeah.
And what blew me away was he handed over the keys to Philip Stark and said, basically, create this thing, to the point where his hotels didn't even have signs on them, and what I loved was that it was 100 small things, whether it was the design of the urinal or the way he had flowers sticking out of the wall in the entrance, or, one of his places, one of my favorite hotels was in Miami, where if you stuck your head underwater in the pool, you could hear music. If you lifted it, you couldn't hear anything. Like every detail was taken into consideration. And I remember, I just loved that attention to detail. And then I was in some kind of backwater city, and I stayed in this hotel that had the feel of a boutique hotel. And I walked in, I just went, this feels like a boutique hotel, but there's something not right about it. And I finally walked up and I said, who owns this place? And they said, oh, we're the division of a big hotel chain. I think it was the Westin Group or something. So they were the boutique. And so what was fascinating to me was they'd pulled out a playbook called Boutique Hotel on it, and they tried to put all that together, but completely missed the point that Philip Stark was getting across to the Schrager hotels. So the point being is that to do it well, like Chateau Marmont and some of the places that you do business with, you actually, there isn't a playbook. There is some kind of an appreciation for what makes great. And I'm wondering, like, when you said that you could walk in a room and in 10 minutes know whether you're right or whether that client's right for you, what's the difference between the people who get it and the people who don't, but still may run good businesses, but just don't go to the level of an Ian Schrager or some of your clients?
Sure. I think often the clients that we work best with have a pretty good idea about what they want. If someone says to us, we've no idea how we sound, it's not that we can't interpret that and come to do something great at all. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what's really interesting for us is when someone says, listen to this. This is a song that says to me 7:30 a.m. on a Wednesday in that room. Do you agree? And we listen honestly. And if we can say, yeah, that is exactly what that room says to me at 7:30 a.m., maybe we're there, we're having a coffee, we're experiencing it together. So they've thought about it a lot, which is what I'm trying to get at, because, and we like going in at the hard hat stage of a hotel build or a restaurant build, of course. But it's also exciting when something's quite established already and they say, look, this isn't broken, but we just want to make it, we want to elevate it. And we say, well, that's what we're really good at. Because, as I say, you can have one song that works at 7:30 a.m. Well, now come up with 500 that work at 7:30 a.m. because we don't want there to be repetition. We don't want, for the staff, of course, but also in a good hotel, you've probably got locals that go there a lot. In a restaurant, of course, you've got locals that go there a lot. We want their experience to be exciting too. Mainly, obviously, predominantly, it's about their experience, but we really care about the staff as well. We don't want, if someone's clock watching going, oh my God, it's 7:15 on a Wednesday, here comes that song again. That's like the worst thing in the world. And we're really strict about how much the music shuffles, how we rotate our playlists. So, without giving away all of our kind of trade secrets, there's a lot of science, or probably being a bit grandiose, but, we put a lot of effort into there not being a great deal of repetition. Excuse me. And so in answer to your question, what if we can walk in a room and someone says, look, we kind of know our brand. We know our brand better than you do. And we're hopefully that is the case. And we've really studied it. And this is the color of the walls. And this is what the plating looks like. Now we think this is the music. What do you think? And we say, right. And there's a analysis or a research and development period of between 2 weeks or a month where we come up with, playlists. We don't get it right first time every time, by the way. We'll really work on analyzing and tweaking it until we can say, right, we're not going to build out these 2,000 track collections of music yet. We're going to really make sure that we're on the right page before we start doing that, because that's when the real labor starts. It's like saying, right. And honestly, we don't give our clients the same playlists. No one gets the same thing. We're always shuffling around how we present our collections of music because, again, you can get, and we do have these conversations quite often where we say, look, we'll be really open. This is how much you can expect to pay with us for this much turnover of music content. If you want to turn over 50% of your content, and we do have clients who like to do that every month, then of course you have to pay more because we're going to have dedicated team to make sure that music is rotating correctly and the quality is always consistent. So you have to pay more. And, if someone says, oh, God, no, I can get it for £50 a month, we say, oh, great, then go and do that because that you're not our kind of client.
You see,
we want the client.
That's the question is, what is different between a client that says, I want to spend £50 a month versus somebody that wants to invest in you? I don't ever want to be rude about, clients that we haven't won. That would be completely wrong of me. There's been times when by the way, without sounding arrogant, we don't often, if we don't win a client, it might be a difference of opinion or a sort of clash of personality, maybe, rarely. It's more often than not that they're testing the water with a few different companies. They've already made a decision. Maybe they're going to work with the existing company they've already got, but they want to get a bit of creative input onto what their new direction might be. And, that happens from time to time. And we sort of, we all move on with our lives. That's okay. It happens. But again, because we've been doing it for some time now, we can sense pretty quickly if they're just fishing for ideas or whether someone seriously wants to undertake the process of working with us. Because, as I say, you don't just sign on and get the music tomorrow. This is a process that can take months until we all feel that we're happy to go ahead and do this. And as I say, we're looking at 3-year contracts. It's not that we're saying, all right, we'll work with you for 6 months and then we'll walk away and you can get someone else to do it for cheaper. That's not the way we do it. It's about this musical identity, if you like, is going to evolve. So what you think is correct right now, in 6 months' time, we'll have a conversation and we're going to adjust it because your clients or your clientele, well, it didn't quite work. In fact, we can almost, switch things up pretty quickly because as I say, the way that we structure our programming, we can
adjust the moods quickly. I'll put it sort of loosely like that. But so if someone says, look, I know how much I've worked in this industry, it's usually I know restaurants. I'm like, good. I'm glad you know restaurants. Well, we know music. And they say, I know that, I've worked with this company before. How come you're so much more expensive? And as I say, it's not that much more, but it is more. And we say, look, well, we're going to dedicate this much time to it. And if you're paying that much to that company, we can safely say that this is the amount of time you're getting dedicated to your music. Do you agree? Because if you're only paying £50, how much do you think they're paying one of their staff to spend time on your music profiles? I would say not a lot of time. And probably not a senior staff member. If it's £50 a month, or some people pay less than that, Rob, you would be surprised at how cheap you can get music for your establishment if you want to.
Well, anytime I seemingly step on an office elevator, I'm hearing the results of those cheaper products.
Yeah, right. That's it, and that's I would say it's fast food, and we jokingly say, look, if a giant multi-site high street store or a brand came to us and asked us to talk about their music, would we say no, considering we try and stay at this higher tier, if you like, less clients, but more, they spend more money. Each client spends more money. And if a high street came to us, would we turn it down? Or of course, we're going to have a conversation, because ultimately we're really interested in people or brands that want to do something different. Well, how do you want to differentiate yourself from your competitors? Well, we would say music is a pretty easy win in that respect. And now, because of the way people listen to music and share playlists, it's not just about your in-store music or your on-site music. It's about the way you market yourself with music on many different platforms. So, it's constantly evolving, and we're not just about background music. Importantly.
There is a big aspect of who you sell to, though. These are tastemakers in a way. Like, they have the ability to realize that, as you said, the interior design, the food, the way the tables are set, the way the furniture is purchased, the backdrop of sound is kind of multi-layered and adding up to something.
Yeah.
And what happens is they can feel it, and they know when it's off, and they don't. But what strikes me is the number of people who just don't get it. I wrote a piece one time on the distance between Debenhams on one side of Selfridges on Oxford Street and M&S. And I was saying the executives in M&S and Debenhams can walk into Selfridges at 10:30 in the morning, it'll be rammed, and they won't have a clue what's happening. They can see the people, they can see the lighting, they can see it's a building, but they don't understand the process that goes into constructing that experience. And that's the thing that I find so curious. But there's another dimension to your business, which I also find interesting, which is it could only really come from a place like London or New York or Paris or maybe Berlin. Like, you need to be in a place where there are tastemakers creating the kinds of environments that value what you're doing. And it takes someone like you to come from a place like that, to have that breadth of exposure that you're talking about, that can actually create something like that. I think it can only, your business, I think anyway, and I'd be curious to know what you think, can only come from a handful of markets.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think obviously for us, we started in London. We've now got an office in Ibiza, and I'm running an office now in Sydney. So we're looking at APAC and the market here, and it's quite early days, but we've got some fantastic clients here and building. I guess you're looking for certainly what we found was you need a market that is constantly evolving. So new restaurants are popping up all the time. New hotels are popping up all the time. Fashion companies are doing catwalk shows or events. I mean, events was a very big, or I wouldn't say it was a strong arm of our business pre-COVID. And we've evolved into programming for different types of events. Like so many companies have had to pivot. We pivoted too in that respect. So, but events, you know, you need companies there. I suppose outside of the telecom and stuff like that. So let's say fashion companies that have historically had big marketing budgets who are going to spend money in those, as you say, to encourage tastemakers and now influencers to turn up to their event, talk about it, tweet it, whatever it might be, market it for them. And they're going to spend a certain budget on that every year. And they're going to do that in the places where all those influencers and tastemakers live. So absolutely, London, New York, Paris, Berlin, the sort of cultural hotspots, if you like. The hotel business, it's fantastically for us. People are always opening new hotels, and someone somewhere is saying, obviously it can be a good business financially, of course, but also it's kind of exciting. Hotels are exciting. I find them exciting. Not everyone likes the hotel experience. I love it. So people, and I think I've never had the will to consider starting my own hotel, or we've never thought about it as a business to go into actually hosting something ourselves, or I've thought about restaurants in the past. But, if I had that gumption to go, right, I'm going to get some investors, this is my product, this is the concept, then yeah, I'm probably going to do it in a city where I'm going to get people flying in, especially London, up until a couple of years ago. There's just so many people coming through the whole time that you'd have to do something quite wrong to fail as a hotel, if you can get the right team. And I think, kind of doubling back a bit, I may be going off piste here, but to what you were saying earlier, what we can gauge usually is pretty quickly is if someone has a decent team. So if you're meeting with a kind of creative director or even a music director, which we often get, which is great, with someone, we're meeting with someone, it's not necessarily the owner, because the owner may not be that music savvy. Why would they be? They're a hotelier or a restaurateur. We want to meet with the person that they've employed that says, this person not only understands our brand, understands enough about music to talk to you guys. And that often is the best relationships we have, where we're not necessarily talking to, we don't want to be talking to, we want to be talking to the creatives within that industry, within that business. Okay, right. Who have you got in your company that is going to talk music with us? Because if it's something that we're having to talk to someone who doesn't really understand it, then they're going to have to take a leap of faith and we'll say, look, we confidently think this is correct for you, but you have to understand why that is, and we're going to have to explain that to you. I suppose the bigger or more adventurous companies are going to have invested in someone at a quite senior level who's got creative skills, and they are probably going to be found in a city rather than in one of the big creative hubs.
Yeah. So how do you, my two final questions. My first one is, how do you build a reputation?
We were fortunate enough to be DJing all the time. So Ben's as I said earlier, a bit younger than me. He's got a great network of friends and colleagues that he's built up over the years, as had I. So, but coming from quite different areas, if you like. So, and when we met and we DJed well together, that was pretty key in our friendship early on. Is that we complemented each other musically, and so we'd be out, and we'd be, if you like, we'd be promoting ourselves physically out in the marketplace. We found it's easy, or the best way to pick up new business is be in front of people. And so obviously it's been difficult in the last couple of years. And thankfully we had sort of established ourselves enough, maybe as a brand, that we've actually had we've had a good, we've managed to weather the storm and picked up some very interesting business in the last 6 months, a year, by investing. We have an investor, and his angle was, now is the time to put yourselves out there. You've got to be front and center in people's minds of the kind of companies that you want to work with now, not in 6 months' time. And he was absolutely right. And he said, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And he wasn't scared. And he taught, Ben and I, having been reeling from COVID, when every one of our clients pretty much overnight stopped paying and shut their doors and said, we can't afford you. So we were like, we totally understand. Of course, we're not going to, even though you're contractually obliged to pay, there's nothing in your contract that says if the world shuts overnight, then you still have to pay. Of course, we were completely understanding. We have a beautiful team of people that we wanted to try and kind of support and keep. They didn't get much governmental support, certainly in the UK. So we did what we could. I'm not saying that we're, deserve a medal, but we really tried to support our crew. And what we found was interesting was that we would make Spotify playlists for our clients that they could send out to not only to their friends, their customers, but to their staff as well. We wanted to keep this idea that music can be something that is a great communicator, not only of your brand, but just in a sort of friendly way. Here is some, we call it sharing the love. Here's some music. Hopefully it makes you feel a bit better. So we that actually really worked in our favor. Coming back to what your question, we just didn't stop communicating with our clients, even though they weren't paying anymore. So we wanted to kind of let them know that we were still there. We were still thinking about them, because not obviously selfishly, we want them to get back into business so we can work together again. But also, we've created friendships with most of these people. I think I sort of touched on it earlier on. If we get on with a client, you can tell that pretty quickly. And I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet or Ben's, but, we're not horrible human beings, hopefully. And, we want to create a kind of camaraderie between our companies, I guess, our brands. We want to be able to excitingly say, we do the music for these guys. And we've got, many clients I haven't mentioned, and we're pretty proud of every single one of them, not only for the fact that we've won them and, that they are hopefully proud to work with us, but for the fact that they're good brands. We want to be excitedly say, Rob, we work with these guys. You may not have heard of them, but if you haven't, you have to go out and check their tacos, or you have to go and, try their hotel offering, because it's really great. That's the conversation we want to have. So when we meet a client, a new individual or group of individuals, we kind of, in a non-sycophantic way, want to become friendly with them. We want to become, on good terms, so they can ring up and say, guys, hopefully we love what's going on. The music's great. Or likewise, at times, we it's not quite right, and you want to have a relationship with a customer where they feel they can do that. They're not just going to go, sod this, it doesn't work. We don't want to work with these guys anymore. The music's not correct. They can ring up and say, look, we're on, or they can realize they're on a friendly enough level where they're not sort of scared to say, guys, not quite right. How do we make this better? And we want those relationships too. And so basically, I think, again, sort of slightly going off piece, but in answer to your question, we put ourselves out there. We DJ, we used to DJ a lot, and we try and make friends, if you like, with people we admire in the industry. We want to be, as I said earlier at the beginning of our chat, we want to be considered as a company that, people are proud to talk about. So, yeah, we've got so-and-so cooking the food, with so-and-so did the interior design, and we got playlister doing the music. That's our sort of dream scenario.
What would your advice be to somebody that wanted to use that wanted to get into the music space and create a business out of it? Like, obviously, it's not like setting up an accounting practice or, or writing some software. It's something different. How would you say that they should approach getting into the business and finding a way to make a living?
So we employ, most of our team is in the UK, as I said earlier. What we found is exciting to us is when we've done the kind of concept of a work experience with a few kids. We pay them something, but what we love is when someone turns up and says, "Look, I just want to learn what you guys do." It's not really about the money. Of course, everyone needs to earn money. I'm not saying that we would consider free labor a positive thing, but when someone says, "Look, what's it going to take for me to come and hang out in your office for a couple of days and learn a bit about what you do?" That's like, it's sort of exciting to us, And I think what I'm trying to get at is you've got to get amongst it. If you're starting a new business from scratch, of course, that has its own series of challenges. But what I would recommend is find a business that you would consider in the space you want to be in, and just get your foot in the door and make friends with someone there and try. And if it's working, most companies, I think, there are government schemes that encourage work experience, so they will be paid to take someone on. So it's not like you're working for nothing. So I'm talking about for young people, I guess, who want to maybe consider a career. For someone from scratch, something new, who's maybe already established in another industry and wants to work in music, I think there's more opportunity now than there ever has been. I think, you could work within a digital music company. There are jobs, I see all the time come up that people working within marketing, for instance, within music, so it's really about, if you just want to be around music people and around, it might not be at the sort of fun, sharp end of it initially, but as I say, you just kind of got to get your foot in the door, and you've got to show a passion for the industry and do whatever it takes really to try and aim high, try and work for the company that you think is doing the most interesting things to you. So if you want to work for Spotify, you've got to go and track them down, hustle them until they give you a job
And find a way in now. That is great advice. Absolutely. Because there is a way. And what I always find remarkable is that there's so many creative people doing like world-class things. And you just think, I didn't realize there was somebody that was a puppeteer that could make a living doing incredible stuff. So Dan, listen, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time. I know it's early in your day in Sydney. It is such a pleasure to talk to you, because I love the fact that you can embrace this and create living for yourself, your family, and create employment for others through a love of music. So Dan, thank you so much for the advice and insight you gave us today. Such a pleasure, Rob. Good to speak to you. Thanks so much for sticking to the end of our interview with Dan Lywood, founder of Playlister.fm. Dan's refreshing fusion of creativity and his in-depth expertise in something as traditional as music curation is an example that not all great ideas come from a need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes it's just how you use what's already available. If you've enjoyed this interview, remember to hit like and subscribe for more great stories of inspired entrepreneurs. See you next time.